All right, here we go. Just occurred to me I should get a drink. So, since we're just starting, I'll get a drink. All righty. So, it's going to be a long night for me, and I need things to do to fill up the time because even when I'm not tired, it's very hard for me to be productive at certain hours. So, it's like, yeah, there's useful things I could do, things I could work on, and things like that. But I enter a period where it's just like I won't be able to focus or concentrate properly. So, why the hell not just, watch a movie, do a live commentary, and keep battling with my connection? I've been having problems, and I don't know. Maybe I'll talk to my cable provider this week and see what can be figured out because it's gotten worse, I feel, since I came back here after being in Sydney over Christmas. So I don't know. Maybe there is a quicker fix. But anyway, this kind of jumped into my head, That Thing You Do, movie that I saw on TV quite a lot over the years and I always liked. It's the first movie Tom Hanks ever directed. I don't really know what his track record is directing. He might have directed other movies, but it's sort of a big deal for that. Although it was not enough to really get people into the theaters because it didn't really do too well in theaters. It's another one of those movies that found its audience later, sort of on home video. It's become sort of a classic. I think really for people around my age too, it's funny because you think the movie, while it was from the '90s, it's set in the early '60s, so you think it was supposed to evoke a lot of nostalgia for people that grew up then and remembered all these garage bands and pop groups and stuff and one hit wonders from the '60s that that show up and then very quickly uh, disappear. And but really, it seems like it's more my generation this movie struck a chord with, maybe because of the cast. I don't know, but I mean, everybody likes Tom Hanks. I think. So Tom Hanks, after doing Philadelphia, he'd been thinking a lot about writing, and he wrote the script for this. And well, of course, he obviously inspired by the idea of telling the story of one of those sort of forgotten one-hit wonders from that era. Really, there was a more specific story. It had less to do with the band. It was more one guy. It was about how when the Beatles did their first ever world tour in 1964, just before they were about to start out, drummer Ringo Starr came down with a case of tonsillitis, and they didn't want to have to cancel the tour, so they got a drummer named Jimmy Nicol to replace him, and he wound up playing 8 dates on the tour. Both I was going to say John Lennon and Paul McCartney seemed to understand that this would be okay. There was no big deal that they had to do it. But George Harrison, who was the youngest of the group, would have been really young in 1964. He was against it, and at first he was like ready to say, if you're going to do the tour without Ringo, you can do it without me. But he eventually came around. They talked him into it and stuff. And Ringo himself felt a little nervous about being replaced. I don't know. I mean, I get it. We think, oh, they're the Beatles, they're the legends, blah blah blah. But at the time, yeah, their stardom had exploded, but they didn't know how long it would last or anything like that. And I guess you would always have that thought if you're somebody like Ringo, who is sort of the least of the Beatles, and he probably knew it then too. Is maybe he thought, oh, I am replaceable. But anyway, nothing crazy happened. Obviously, when he got better, he rejoined the band, and that was that. But it was really, I think Tom Hanks had the idea of this guy sort of being plucked out of obscurity and then spending several weeks being with the most famous group in history. Another thing to remember about the Beatles is what they did was unprecedented. Rock music had only been around for a little while. And this idea of playing big stadiums and things like they would go on to do, no one had ever done that before. There was no such thing as a rock concert or any sort of musical concert that would play these massive venues. And that's one thing that always interested me. I should have grabbed the CD, but a few years ago, they released a nice version of oh, hell, I'll find it. My Beatles stuff is pretty close at hand. So, which one is it? Yes. So here's Live at the Hollywood Bowl, 8 days a week. They made Ron Howard directed the documentary that goes along with it. But this has a set here that's got 13 songs on it plus a few bonus tracks, so they're probably not all from the same performance. But anyway, the thing to remember about this is that it had never been done before. Things weren't really set up that way as far as bands went, as far as like the audio equipment and things go. Like the monitors, like they didn't have monitors. Like it's amazing how good when you strip this away and you listen to them because there's no way in hell they could hear themselves at all because of the crowd. You know, again, height of Beatlemania. It's mostly teenage girls just fucking losing their minds, just the whole time. Energy's up the entire time. They don't quiet down for a single time. They just screech their lungs out through the whole thing. New phenomenon that was new too. That that had never been seen. Now it's kind of the thing. We see it with people like Justin Bieber and things in recent years. But before that, that didn't exist either. That kind of stardom or young people like just losing their shit, particularly girls. So I think what really holds up about this, and I think they probably had to do some stuff to make so you can actually hear the band over that. But I mean, when it's stripped away and you hear the band, especially I think their vocals, because I can tell you as someone who sings, if you can't hear yourself, it's very easy to go maybe not completely off key if you're a good enough singer, but still not sing the way you mean to. It's amazing how dead on they are, particularly because they did a lot of songs that relied on vocal harmonies. So it's kind of crazy listening to that and realizing even then they were so young, just how talented they really were. And they were breaking new ground. No band or any musician had ever done what they were doing. But anyway, getting back to what I was saying, what really struck him was this story about Jimmy Nicol. This idea of, just coming out of nowhere and then dealing with a few weeks of a huge burst of fame and then going back into obscurity. Now, this is different. This is about a whole band, but it is a pretty well-known story. There's a lot of bands, maybe even hundreds of bands, at least dozens, that would have, one-hit wonders back in those days in the 60s. They'd have a short burst. They get their sort of one good tour, and that'd be the end of them. So that's really the story being told here. Hanks had written the script, moved it around a bit, and he, I think when it was being sent on to studios, they put a different name on it because they wanted to get honest feedback and see if it was strong enough to get anybody's interest without, the Tom Hanks name being on there. Did that. He worked with producer Jonathan Demme. Jonathan Demme was one of the producers on this. And of course, what holds the whole thing together was they sort of had it wasn't a contest, but, they sent it out, this, I don't know, missive or something to, I guess, the musical community. We're looking for a one-hit wonder Beatles type sounding song. Can you write it, for this movie? Can you write it? And a whole bunch of people tried. And of course, the one that is in the movie that came through was written by, I can never say his name properly. He was in Fountains of Wayne. He passed away 2 years ago, very tragically. He died from COVID. Adam Schlesinger, something like that. Anyway, Stacy's mom has got it going on. He wrote that, but he wrote a lot of other stuff too. And this was when he would have been pretty young. But I mean, in his friend, what was the guy's name? I think I had the name. And his friend Mike Viola, who was in a band that I'd never heard of at the time, he's the guy who does the lead vocals on it. That's not the actor in the movie singing. That's Mike Viola, who's gone on and he's worked with a lot of people too. I know him mostly because he had in the last few years, he's had a close working relationship with Mandy Moore. He's produced albums with her and written a lot of her songs or co-written with her. And that's how his name came up for me. But, again, he was 28 at the time when this movie came out, or just around that, or at least when he did the sessions. I don't know the details, but he'd been married and his wife had died. So he was really depressed. And Adam, whatever his name was, had to work really hard to convince him to do this because he's like, I don't want to do it. But anyway, it all turned out. It's a great song. There's a couple other songs that the Wonders perform in the movie that are supposed to be original songs. They're actually by different artists. But anyway, so it's actually been quite a while since I've seen the movie. I don't know if I've ever watched it like this. I think I've only ever watched it on TV. To tell you the truth, I've never had a DVD or anything. But anyway, it's on Disney Plus here. And it does cross my mind that with certain movies, Disney Plus does censor stuff, but I don't think there's anything in this movie to censor, is there? I don't even think there's cursing in this movie. Because another thing that Tom Hanks wanted to this movie to be, he wanted to be very positive. And at one point when, he was talking to people, they're like, all right, so this is the moment. Is this who screws the band over? Where's that moment? And he's like, no bad guys in my movie. He said that a whole bunch of times. No bad guys in my movie. And I mean, yeah, some things happen. There's some conflict, but the idea that Tom Hanks wanted is nobody's bad. It's not about anybody screwing anybody over or anybody being mean to anybody or anything like that. He wanted a very positive movie. And that's what I remember about it. Maybe that's why it struck a chord. A young, vibrant cast that really got into it. I really like Steve Zahn a lot. I like Steve Zahn. I think he's one of the more underrated actors of his generation. I always enjoy him whatever he's doing. I'm not too familiar with the guy who is the lead singer of the band. His name is Jonathan Schaech. I don't even know how to say that. Schaech. I mean, obviously he's probably in other stuff, but I don't know. I'm not going to remember. But Ethan Embry's there. He only would have been about 16 when they started shooting. Tom Everett Scott, Steve Zahn, Liv Tyler, and I'm pretty sure the blonde whose name I never remember shows up eventually too. But anyway, we can get into it. So I'm hoping that Disney Plus doesn't censor any of this, because there's a few things they do censor. Because like if you watch Splash on Disney Plus, there's a part where you can see Daryl Hannah running to the sea when she has legs, and you can see her butt, but they kind of blur that so you can't see her butt because Disney doesn't like butts. And also in the semi-classic, or some people just say straight up classic, what is it? And this is why I won't watch it, because I want to watch the thing properly, is I'll do a little aside and I'll get into the movie. But what is it? Adventures in Babysitting, right? Because Adventures in Babysitting has the F word in it. Only at the end it has that line, "Don't fuck with the babysitter." And I think it's one of the most earned curse F-bomb drops in a movie. Like a lot of movies, they're full of, it doesn't matter. That's just the way the characters talk. They don't have any meaning. But then you have the very few movies where the F word, fuck, only finds itself into a few places. Another good example is Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. Planes, Trains, and Automobiles doesn't have any real strong cursing except that one scene where Steve Martin is going at it with the car rental woman or whatever it is, and he says fuck a whole and fucking and stuff like that a whole bunch of times. But you need it. It serves a purpose, and I feel like that's kind of the same thing with the F word, the F-bomb drop in Adventures in Babysitting. Like, you really need it. But anyway, you're not going to get it if you watch it on Disney Plus. So I know there was no F-bombs in this movie, and I know it's pretty wholesome, but I still wonder, is there something for Disney to censor? I guess I'm going to find out. So the first thing that comes up for me is the Fox logo. So we'll do a countdown from that, and then we'll get going here. This one's pretty impromptu, so I didn't really tell anybody about it. Plus, I don't know how well other people that I usually do stuff know this movie or how enthused they'd be about it. But I got in my head that I really wanted to do it. Not too long ago, I read an article from about 2021. It was one of those great oral history articles. I love those kinds of articles, where it's mostly told just through quotes from people that were in and around. I mean, it had most of the principal people involved, but also, some people like costume designers and things like that would have the odd thing to say. I've always been a big fan of those types of articles, and it was really good. Part of it pointed out what a weirdo Ethan Embry was. He was really weird back then. I guess he was trying to stand out and be different. There's some weird, interesting stuff there. You can find out about stuff that was happening to him and he was doing at the time. But anyway, that's enough of that. Enough preamble. So we'll do a 3, 2, 1, play. Okay. All right. And 3, 2, 1, hit and play. So of course the movie has the song played over and over again, which can get tiring, but it's a good song, so it works out okay. And I mean, part of what narrative that's being told is like they're struggling with that. Like it's this one song. Like nobody seems to care about anything else that they have to do, so they get sick of it too. But I can't really remember the opening here very well. It's been so long since I've seen this movie. But yeah, I've caught this on TV many times of the last 25 years or whatever it's been since the movie came out. So they're in Erie, Pennsylvania or something like that. So this song we're hearing, this sounds like a real song that existed back then, but it's not. Tom Hanks wrote this song. He wrote some songs on the soundtrack that the Wonders don't perform, and this is one of them. Because he would just swear, oh, this is one of those, sort of like easy listening Muzak type songs, vocal group type things. But it's not a real one. It's one that Tom Hanks wrote. So that's kind of cool. Ooh. So that's Tom Everett Scott there, isn't it? He's the drummer. Like, I already forget stuff. It's like his dad's appliance store. I don't know. It'll come back to me as I watch, I'm sure. And of course, as I said, while it's not, while it is Mike Viola doing the singing, I don't know if we ever hear the Wonders, the actors perform the song, but they could without the vocals anyway. Like they rehearsed and rehearsed and rehearsed until they were capable of playing it. but that's not what you actually hear on the soundtrack. It's just so that it looks more convincing when they play. So it doesn't just, but I mean, they were miming along. In fact, they got so good at miming that, extras and crew and stuff that didn't know thought, oh, they really were playing it, and then the playback would go. But they really did work hard and get on their instruments. Steve Zahn and I think Ethan Embry had both had a little bit of experience playing their instruments beforehand. What is that, bass and guitar? Yeah. Still sounds too loud, doesn't it? Oh, and of course, the score is Howard Shore. Oh, I love that Canadian composer Howard Shore. He doesn't have much to do here because most of the music is the rock and pop music. But Colleen Atwood, there you go. So she was one of the people that was quoted in the article because she talked about acquiring the right wardrobe for this because it's supposed to be what, I guess, early 60s. So he likes jazz. I will say, as a drummer enthusiast who's not actually a drummer, although years ago, since I was in a lot of bands, I was around drums a lot. So I had some time behind the kit. I could play some rudimentary things. I used to be able to play the whole song. What is it? Eye of the Tiger on the drums because it's very simple. Yeah, he has an interest in jazz, it seems. And I mean, I'll just say, jazz is much harder than rock, particularly if you're a drummer. It's way harder. So, I mean, people talk about like all these awesome like metal drummers and stuff. They're good, but I just mean, and I'm not taking anything away from them, but they are not the best drummers in the world. The best drummers in the world are jazz drummers and fusion drummers. It's nuts. I think people are more aware of that now because there was that popular movie a few years ago, Whiplash. Like Whiplash really showed that. Like it didn't tell me anything I didn't know. I didn't go to school like that, but I went to some camps and things like that. I think Whiplash is a bit overrated, but I do appreciate the music and the light it shines there. It's showing just how difficult jazz is. Those nice big 50s guys. So there's Liv Tyler, who I think is already dating one of them. And apparently there were at least two real life groups from the 60s that had the name The Wonders. One of them was like a doo-wop group or something. But one was an actual band, but they're super obscure. You can't really know anything about them. I do remember they have the joke here is that they write it as like one, like the number one, but everybody can't understand that. They're like the Oneaters. I know that comes up a few times here. There's Ethan Embry. So I mean, one of my favorite movies that I did do a commentary on ages ago that I watch over and over again is Empire Records, and Ethan Embry and Liv Tyler are both from that, so they knew each other a little bit, having done that only a little while before this. The Herdsman, yeah, that's a great name. I'm trying to remember. Like they have a different drummer first, right? Is this how it goes before they add the guy before they add Tom Everett Scott? Do they start out with a different drummer? Let me see here. Yeah, so he's Guy Patterson, wants to be a jazz drummer. Or maybe they just don't have a drummer yet. They might just not have a drummer. Yes, we're of the same mind on that one, Jamie. I endlessly quote that movie and all those things. I love that movie. One of my favorites. This one doesn't compare, but I still like this one. It's nice to do. But it made like working at a record store look like the coolest thing ever. Yeah, no, look, he's got a really strict dad that wants to make sure that he's, yeah, it's the sort of thing, get your head out of the clouds, give up on this music thing, get a real job, all that stuff. I mean, we still have that now, but it was over 50 years ago, even more so. Because this is still sort of the early days of rock. A lot of society does not know how they feel about it, I'm not sure what year it is supposed to be 64. I was going to say, is it supposed to be a couple years before 64? So they're saying that this is 64. I assume the Beatles exist in this world. Oh, look, is that Thunderbirds? That's either Thunderbirds or like what's it called? Something XL Fireball or whatever it was. Those I remember YTV used to show them. Those crazy puppet shows in black and white from like the 60s and 50s. I kind of hated them, but I still watched a little bit of them. Fireball XL5 was one of them. Thunderbirds was, I don't know. Crazy. What a weird genre, subgenre. I love seeing all the old TVs here. Like stuff like this is just disappearing from the world. Like these were old 25 years ago. What happened to them now? Are they in some warehouse or something? You're still gonna make movies about the early 60s. We need these props. These pieces of history. It's like some of them are props and maybe some of them are legit. I don't know. I think about that whenever I watch like period piece type movies. Technology marches on. Just today I was looking at some of the better, more high performance CRT TVs because I'm a retro gamer. So, you know, I still need to hold on to those kinds of TVs, those tube TVs. Because back in the day, consoles did not have HDMI cords. So, yeah. Okay, yeah. So here they're trying to convince him that they're going to perform a talent show. I mean, I get why they cast this guy, Jonathan Shates or whatever. Like the way they do him up, he has a very he reminds me a lot of like Richie Valens, right? I really get that feel from him. And of course, Tom Hanks does have a role in this movie. He doesn't just direct; he plays their like first manager. As you can see, one of the things I do like about any type of thing with music is I like seeing the genesis. See, I like that the song isn't finished yet; they're still working on it. I like that kind of stuff. One of the things that drove me nuts, and I realized you only have so much time. Like I saw the Elton John movie a few years ago, Rocket Man. It's like, well, how do you put like his like 50-year career or whatever into like 1-2 hour movie? Well, you can't. But I just mean there's a part where it's during the period in real life where, you know, he and Bernie Taupin were living together in his parents' house, and Taupin would write lyrics. And that morning, he found the lyrics to Your Song, and he sat down at the piano, and he plays it instantly, perfectly. You know, exactly as you hear it, like on the radio. That drove me nuts. Like I wanted to see something. I know they didn't have time to show it realistically, but they could have done something. Instead, he sits down, perfect, exactly as on the record. Like I don't know. So I always appreciate that when in movies, particularly when they're doing songs. So here's the "Oh Needers" thing. No, it's "Wonders." Like one, he even says the hyphen, but people are still going to read it that way. Okay, now we've jumped ahead. Well, there's some of the folk music, which was about to become pretty big itself. Let's hit the paper airplane. That guy's so obnoxious. I wonder if he had to audition. They're like, wow, you are super annoying. You'll be perfect as our annoying guy. So for those just joining us, we're pretty much at the start of the movie. We're just a little past 11 minutes in. Okay, so there she is. The blonde is here from the start. Why can't I remember her name? Grew up in South Africa. She might be the actress whose name I forget the most ever. Charlize Theron. She's the only Charlize I've ever heard of in my entire life. So the name doesn't come to me. Like, have you ever known another Charlize? Heard of another Charlize? I have not. I've never heard of that name except her. It's kind of like Sigourney Weaver. Like, have you ever heard of another Sigourney? Because I sure as fuck haven't. Some sort of mariachi type band here. Maracas and trumpets. There's that. No. All right. So one of the key things here is that when they were rehearsing, the song's a lot slower. And what's going to happen here is, and what's going to help the song is the drummer, a guy, sort of takes it upon himself to just speed it up, like without permission. And that's really what makes the song click. And we'll say something about that in a moment, but let's listen to it. We're not ready. Ooh, he's going to kill time with some killer jokes. He doesn't take. Is this supposed to be high school? I don't even know. It's weird because the ages are all over the place. Some people look young and other people look old. Although I will say in the 60s, like, look at 60s teenagers. They look old as hell. Like, I don't know the age. It's the wonders. Oh, I hate those little mics. Yeah, way too fast. Like, I like how he just does it. Like, there's no preamble. He just decides, I'm going to play it faster. So this is something that reminds me of the Beatles, although it's kind of different because the Beatles were not hard up for hits. They already had hits and they'd have many, many to follow. The song Help was much the same thing. When Help was composed, it was a very slowed down, somber thing. It wasn't until pretty late in the recording process that they decided to speed it up and we get the song that we have. Now, speaking of movie soundtracks, you'd think I would own a lot, but I don't because I'm very picky. So even though I'm a big movie fan and a big music fan, very few movies did I bother buying the soundtrack for because usually they would only have maybe 2 or 3 songs I liked and then I didn't give a fuck about the others. But here's the I Am Sam soundtrack, which is composed entirely of Beatles covers by various artists. And there's a track on here, Howie Day. Remember that guy who did Collide? He does the song Help. And he does it much the same way I think it was originally done. It's very slowed down and somber. It's pretty cool. Listen, most of the covers on here are pretty good. I like a lot of them. But I mean, see, it took that kind of like gimmick for me to get a soundtrack because they're all Beatles songs, so I know I'm going to like them. But most soundtracks are too eclectic for me. Anyway, people are getting into the song, and I hope you like it because we're going to hear it a lot. Bridge. Just can't take it. I'm not going to sing. I might break down and sing at the very end, but it'd be way too early for me to sing right now, so you're spared. This dance. This was a thing. It was kind of a dance. I mean, bless them for the kinds of dancing they made up in the 60s, because it was perfect for somebody like me who can't dance. It's like, here's dances any idiot can do. You don't have to have any sort of, I wasn't a good dancer. It had nothing to do with rhythm. I have great rhythm. That's why I was a decent drummer without even having any, formal instruction. I have a really great sense of rhythm, but I'm just not a dancer. It's like one of the big sort of contradictions of my life is because, I don't know, I'm almost 40, and I still to this day describe myself as a free spirit, which I guess nowadays would be like a big red flag for anybody who's going to date me. Oh, it means he doesn't have his life together and he's a fucking loser. But I still consider myself a free spirit in many ways. But the big contradiction is I'm not a dancer and I don't dance and I don't want to dance. And maybe now if a pretty girl asked me to dance, I'd be like, okay, I'll do it. And because now it seems like it happens less and less, and I'm in less of those situations. But I can remember being young and being in those situations and having girls ask me to dance, and you'd be like, "Don't dance." The hubris of youth. So they're an instant success here. Oh, okay. This guy wants them to do a real gig. $100, which was like $10 million in 1964, give or take. They won the talent show. They get the trophy. Okay, now he explains a little that he could just hear the beat in his head. So he does talk about it a little, like he just knew that it would be better to go faster. You didn't seem nervous. So, okay, I'm getting already confused here. About who's who. Okay, so she's Tina. She was already Guy's girlfriend. Okay, so Charlize Theron is Tina. She's already dating Guy. Whereas Jimmy is dating Liv Tyler, Faye. Okay. So I can't remember what happened. Is there some sort of conflict there? Do they switch around? I don't remember. For some reason, I didn't remember that he was already dating Tina. My memory is Tina came into the movie later. But I was wrong. I remembered it wrong. So here's another one of their songs. So this was not composed by Adam Schlesing or however you say it. Somebody else. The voice is very sort of Jimmy Valens, like, or Richie Valens-esque too. It's not just the look. So. That's Mike Viola. I think I've already blown through all the background information I have on the movie. So this will just have to be reactions. So it's time to break out the big song. So yeah, they're still using the Wonders, Yo Meters. Guys in the back, they're already getting pestered about the song. I mean, at this point, it wouldn't matter. You had like one gig. You can't be tired of the song already. Yeah, I think we should play it. Just that beat is so synonymous with like the 60s. Da, 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 da. What's happening? Oh, his dad's gonna be mad that he's not there. He corrects him. It's not own eaters, it's own headers. What? I know one of them was like in the army or something. I'm missing some of this dialogue. But yeah, Jimmy's what you expect. He's very driven. He's very serious. He's all about the music. And somebody wants the record. Yeah, that's right. So Tom Hanks is going to show up soon, I believe. Oh, somebody else first. Who's Phil Horace? Oh, Giovanni Ribisi, whatever his name was the Render's original drummer. I already missed that. See, that must have been right at the start. He must have left or something. I don't know. I can't stand that guy, by the way. Not personally. He's just one of those actors who I find really off-putting. Who else is off-putting? And I feel bad about because he just died. What's his name? Who just died? Come on, help me out here. He wasn't young, but he was young to die. Although I thought he was like 10 years older than he is. Shit, now I can't think it'll come back. They're recording in the church. Cool. A lot of bands have done this, but usually not out of necessity. They did it because they thought it would be cool. So just to see you go. I can't help it. It's an earworm, right? Got hand claps. That's a big thing from the 60s. Some bands, one of my favorite bands, Sloan, they're big for hand claps. They've got hand claps in quite a few of their songs. So they're recording live off the floor all together, which is not the standard recording process, but this is what you do when you're recording in a church and you don't have sound booths or professionals or very much money. Let me do that choir. Is he his Uncle Bob or just call him Uncle Bob? And is that Chris Isaak? Yeah. He is his uncle, and that is Chris Isaak. So that's pretty cool. Chris Isaak's a surprisingly good actor. I used to watch the Chris Isaak show when it was on HBO back when it used to be TMN in Canada. Neato. And I thought it was a good show. It was, a sort of fictionalized version, of his life as himself, Chris Isaak. It seems too loud, doesn't it? Ooh, they're already getting some girl fans. Steve Zahn knows what's up. You got a girlfriend already, and she's fucking, Jesus. 1996. Charlize Theron. Yeah, if that's your girlfriend, yeah, don't get greedy, dude. The thing about Charlize Theron and Liv Tyler is they're both, I think, taller than me. That's not like a turn off exactly. It would have bothered me when I was younger. It doesn't bother me as much now, but maybe it would have bothered them. I don't know. What about the bass player? Well, he calls him Ringo. So yes, the Beatles do exist in this world. I didn't think it was a world where the Beatles didn't exist. That would be interesting. There's a whole movie about how the Beatles stopped existing in the world, right? Yesterday? It's pretty good. It's not an amazing movie, but it helps if you're a big Beatle fan like I am. I love when people say the Beatles are overrated. I mean, in a way, I guess they can't be wrong because they're considered the greatest band of all time. But if the Beatles are overrated, who is the greatest band of all time would be my question, I suppose. Because I know Jay's like, I do think the Beatles are overrated. I'm like, okay, well, who has had a bigger impact on, music? No one. And I don't mean to just use that kind of argument because there's so many bands that have had big impacts and sold millions of records that I don't like and I don't think are that good. But I don't know. The Beatles are just a class for themselves, man. Yes, they're all in kind of suits now, which is what a lot of these bands look like. Very clean cut, nice guys. The idea of having like harder edge music, it would all blow up in the next few years. But 1964, you just had to play things a certain way. It's funny, like I never saw the Jersey Boys thing, about the Four Seasons. But I know in a lot of the stuff in between, you see like they're living pretty tough lives and they're pretty crass and stuff. But then all the music they sang was so wholesome and sweet and everything. And you think now, like they had a lot in common with growing up in a rough neighborhood and all that stuff. Like the same guys that would do like gangster rap. The difference was the gangster rap guys, they didn't change anything for their songs. So like our songs will just be exactly the way we act. Whereas if you were somebody like the Four Seasons, I'm not saying they didn't believe in their songs or anything like that, but I just mean they're not going to be curse words or sexual innuendo or anything like that. And it wouldn't have occurred to them to do that because that just wasn't done. Feels like all the barriers have been smashed in music. Now we're just living in some sort of weird, hellish aftermath. But this is, again, what happens. I'm almost 40, so I hate all current music, right? That's part of getting older. Everything sucks. All the best music was in the 90s, blah, blah, blah. I don't want to be an old guy that hates everything, but, you know. I was watching Jeopardy tonight, and, like, they had a thing about pop music, and, like 4 of the questions were, like, since, like, 2020. I'm not going to know any of that. I don't know anything. Like, 2010 is new music to me. And the gap's only going to get wider as we go. Who's this idiot? Oh, there's Phil Horace. So this is the guy that signs them first. Before Tom Hanks, who I guess is a bigger, flashier guy, comes in and replaces him. So let's get back to the movie and see what's actually happening. My office, please. And his office is... it's not even an RV. It's just a weird trailer thing on the back of a pickup or something. An office is an office, I suppose. No secretary. No lobby, no fountains. And he seems to be making some sort of goulash for himself. So what's this actor? I can't find him. Tom Hanks is right there. I know Kevin Pollak shows up somewhere, but that's not him. I've gone blind, apparently. Phil Horace. Who the fuck is Phil Horace? I don't know. Not listed anywhere. Oh, Bryan Cranston has a cameo in there. Nobody knew Bryan Cranston in '96, really. Or what year was Malcolm in the Middle start? I have a whole thing on Bryan Cranston, but I'll save that for something else. Okay, I can't find Phil Horace. And I can't remember who died either. Who the hell was it that died? He was 61. I thought he was like 69 or 70 at least. I don't know. I think he's another one of those 3 named bastards. So many guys with 3 names. But maybe not. Whoa. It's weird to see this go the other way when you look at a bombshell like her. And, oh, no, she's... Oh, this is probably the coolest scene in the movie. Where they first hear themselves on the radio. And they all... Yeah. I'm not going to describe it. You just have to remember it. It's weird. Headphones don't exactly exist yet, but they've got radios that have little earbud things. Get on the floor and sell some dishwashers. Slacker. Five faster. Okay, so Faye, Liv Tyler, is out on the street about to mail something, when suddenly she's going to hear them on the radio. But I think Ethan Embry hears it too. So, the pure joy. I don't know, it's really great. She just flies down the street. He's coming out of the Army-Navy store because Ethan Embry's going to join the Army, I guess. He has his radio, but he doesn't have it on. Cut back to him selling to some housewives, and his insane friends come in screaming. And Tom Hanks' direction was like, once they're all together, it's like, I'm gonna have, like, literally, I know it sounds stupid, but you're gonna like hold hands and dance around and skip around in a circle. You're like, you mean that literally? And he's like, I mean that literally. It's like, just do it. There's a little spot there too when he before he runs in, he like wipes his feet. Maybe it's that military attitude. I don't know. There you go, hugging and spinning around. Steve Zahn's character is striking out with the ladies once again. The others show up in the car. I like, yeah, Steve Zahn's striking out with the ladies just keeps going on here because they have like, let's see here. Of course, he hugs his girlfriend. The others just bounce around, kisses his girlfriend. The old men don't know what's going on. So Steve Zahn's like, oh, I'll celebrate with this woman. And she's like, oh, oh. So he just grabs the fold out, cardboard cutout, gives that a kiss. It's great. It's like, that's what you, don't be embarrassed. Yeah, yeah. Now they're actually going in circles. Yeah, the woman there, she gets it. She thinks it's a country song. Yeah, there they are. Literally holding hands in a circle, skipping. And it works. It's not too much. It's really not. On paper, maybe it sounds like too much, but the actors sell it. It's really good. Just the pure excitement and joy, the elation. You know, other people are hip to it. They know what's going on, and it's a big deal. Yeah, I'm Spartacus. And for that shot, like you'll see his hands aren't in the shot. I don't think it matters, but like the crew said, they were like, his hands aren't in the shot. And Tom Hanks is just like, doesn't matter. We won't get that good again. Keep it. Oh, the curlers. What young ladies went through. Price of beauty. Another thing that I guess is timeless hasn't really changed. Maybe the methods have changed. I was at the dentist and he was really hunky. What, you're more impressed by the hunky dentist than your soon to be rock star drummer boyfriend? Come on now. She definitely is less impressed than anybody else, it seems, by their success. But right now, like, they don't have much success. They got their song on the radio. They managed to get a record going. WITI? The Mattress King, that's right. See, some of this is coming back to me, the Mattress King. Yeah, about that. Ah, there's Kevin Pollak. He really gets this. You know, Kevin Pollak's somebody I know, and yet I can never really name movies he's in. Like, I can never remember. I mean, he's in The Usual Suspects, I think. Yeah, so there's the subplot here that Ethan Embry's character, need to get our names straight. Ethan Embry's character, who is the bass player, TB, and his last name is literally Player. Do they call him TB? I don't know. I'm missing some of the dialogue here, so. The Mattress King is here. Mattress King of Pittsburgh. Kevin Pollak must be so old now. It's not like he's young there. That'd be well into middle age there, isn't it? Oh. Mattress banter never gets old. Hit me, baby, one more time. I'll sing that one for you later. That one's right in my vocal wheelhouse. The Hollyhocks. The Vitzbergs. But let's start with the Wonders. Shake, bake, and make. That was a big thing for like radio DJs and stuff back then too. Talk fast and do after rhyming. You see that done pretty well in Grease, which of course is 50s. It's been a while since I've watched Grease. Maybe I'll do a live commentary of Grease eventually. Oh, is this one? Come on now, people. It's 1964. You don't know better. I mean, I get they can be annoyed by mic feedback, and look at those crappy amps. That's one of the main reasons why guitar, like the early groups, had that template of having two guitars. It wasn't even necessarily to have like more complex songs where you'd have two separate guitar parts. It was literally because back then amps weren't powerful enough, and having two guitars just added more volume. That was really the main reason at the time. That's why in the later 60s, when that caught up, you caught the idea of the power trio, like Cream and stuff, caught on. Because then you didn't necessarily need that extra guitar if all you cared about was, like, volume. The drummer, the backbone, the timekeeper. And they got booed, yeah. I mean, it's a little early to get disillusioned with all this, but yeah, getting booed sucks. I don't care what you're doing. Exotic cuisine of the Far East. I guess in 1964, that was fair enough to say. I mean, it still works, but I don't know, we've gotten so used to that kind of stuff. There's Tom Hanks. So you introduce him to Tom Hanks. So Tom Hanks doesn't like come and steal them. It was a young Tom Hanks. Easy to forget. I'm already thinking he was older. It's like, no, it's 1996. Chet is 5 years old, I think. It's a bad name. Why would you name him that? Yeah, let's get to the record deal. Record deal time. It's Lenny who decides, I think, even though he's not even here yet. Because right now it's just Jimmy meeting with him. Okay. They're like, Phil's our manager. But no, Phil, yeah. Okay. So he doesn't steal them. Phil's like, no, I'm not good enough for you guys. You're going to go on to bigger and better things without me. Playtone Records. Well, that's not Jimmy. Oh, they're talking to the drummer. Sorry. They're talking to Guy. Yeah, it's interesting that the focus is really on him and not Jimmy. I think that's interesting too. Like, he's the missing piece. He's kind of what makes things work. But I mean, Jimmy is the songwriter and the front man, and they keep showing it throughout the movie. That he's very serious about his music and very dedicated. But the focus is on Guy. Tom Everett Scott has that interesting crooked grin he can do. I like how he describes the other artists that they're on the Playtone label as the Playtone Galaxy. Very cool. Let's do a timestamp here. We're just past 40 minutes. Okay, now they're going to the name change. Wonders. Screw your confusing name. Yeah, he wants to re-record Only in Dreams. And he says no. But yeah, screw the music. We got to get you some nice suits because, even in 1964, rock music isn't in its infancy, but it's certainly still kind of young. And it's already becoming all about image. Oh, some things. Plus ça change. Plus ça change. Oh, I'm losing my French. Plus ça change. Plus les mêmes choses. Oh, fuck. I gotta get back to speaking some French or something. Okay, so this is where he's telling them he's already joined. Yeah, he's already joined. So he'd have to. So he tells them, "I'll have to leave the band at the end of August." I mean, at least he's giving them a heads up. That wouldn't make me feel too good about a band I was in, though. That somebody thought the army would be like the more sure thing. Oh, I hate those skinny ties. There must be a name for those. What are those skinny ties called? Jimmy's got one on. Looks ridiculous. They've already done his hair up. He's got kind of, almost sort of a Beatles mop top thing going. Yeah, I was just saying that thing about Image. That's like the first thing they did to Jimmy Nickel before he went on tour. Is like, we got to get it, give him the same haircut as the other guys. Yeah, I do feel bad for Ringo from that standpoint, because I mean, how many of the like fans they saw there even noticed Ringo wasn't there? Although I'm sure probably the band might have mentioned it. I would assume. Well, I mean, how many noticed until like the band pointed it out for them? Like, oh, Ringo's not here, but Jimmy's filling in. I don't know. There must be footage of some of those shows somewhere. I'll have to look for it. See if they talk about old Jimmy Nickel. I'll give Jimmy credit too. Like, his music career didn't work out, and he faded into obscurity. But he never decided to like sell his story. Like, he never tried to cash in for his like 15 minutes of fame with the Beatles. Like, he thought that would be cheap and it wouldn't be good. He said they were really good to me, and that would be, I respect the hell out of that. I'm not saying he could have made a ton of money off it, but he could have made something. All right, so this is the whatever it is. Fairgrounds, I don't know. State fairs. So these are some state fairs in the Midwest that they're going to play. And I know Faye comes along with them. Yeah, so they're meeting some of the other artists. Yeah, so we do get to hear at least partially some songs by some of the other artists here too, but I don't really remember what they're like. It's a girl group. That was another thing that sort of set the Beatles apart when they first started. Before they were writing a lot of their own songs, and they did a lot of covers. A few of the songs that are on here. One's called, for instance, "Boys." There's one of the songs here called "Boys." There's probably more, but anyway, "Boys" was a song by girl groups, and that was kind of interesting that the Beatles chose that, because I think other groups would have seen, oh, that's not masculine to do a girl group song, but they didn't shy away. Who's this guy? Is that Freddie Fredrickson? Their suits are red and look really bad, but it's 1964. No one will notice. All right, and it's important that guy wears sunglasses. They decide that at some point. That has to be like his gimmick, his look. The drummer has to have sunglasses. Fair enough. Cootie. No guarantees. Do an encore and I'll fucking kill you. No encores. I mean, that's the way it was back then, and continue for a while. Bands would sign to these record contracts, and they were completely controlled. They saw very. That's the thing. Eventually the Beatles, because of their enormous fame and success, the money did trickle in. But in 1964, even though they got to go to like lavish places, like they didn't actually personally have much money themselves yet. Like, they were already enjoying fame, zipping around in fancy cars with pretty girls and stuff like that. But they didn't actually really own anything yet. Like, it took a while for like them to actually start making money from it, because of the way those record contracts and things were back in the day. Oh man, you ever watch any of those things about those poor like various Motown groups, a lot of those girl groups in the 60s and early 70s? Like, so many of them, they were so young and so naive and talented, and the record company just fucked them over. And anyway. Yeah, it's been a whole like 15 minutes since we heard the songs. Here we go again. That's another problem about playing in the 60s. It was important you had to smile while you played. Ugh. I would not want to do that. It's funny. It's 1964, and in about two and a half years' time, this is all going to blow up. Like, groups are going to come along. They're going to say, you know what? We don't need to wear goddamn suits. You know what? We don't need to all smile while we play. And just completely changed and really showed, the what rock stars, what we think of now. Having long hair, that was a big deal back then. I mean, the world moves so fast, and I know things have changed so much in the last few years, but still, I can't think of a decade where change happened faster than like the 60s. Like, think about like look at photos or something from 1962, just random photos from 1962. Then look at photos from like 1967. That's like 5 years, and it looks like it's like 20 years later because things have changed so much, particularly over here in North America. But the rest of the world will follow. So we have a montage. Oh, this is very Beatles-esque. It's kind of like in Hard Day's Night or something. Yeah, so I was trying to think, even though it's got that beat, the song is just ordinary 4/4 time. I was overthinking it and thinking, is this in some sort of complicated time signature? Not at all. It's just ordinary 4/4. I can usually pick that out with songs. The vast majority of pop hits you hear are in 4/4, but then if you're into something like Rush, you get all sorts of crazy time signatures. Like, as far as like mainstream guff goes, 6/8 is already considered kind of pretty weird, even though And you would think there'd be more popular songs in 3/4, sort of the waltz time. Not a lot. My favorite REM song is 3/4, and that's Day Sleeper. Beautiful song. But yeah, you just don't hear too many popular pop or rock songs in 3/4. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. I don't know. I do have rhythm. I have a good sense of time. And I think with training, I would have been a good drummer. I just played other instruments. It's not too late. Maybe I can start it up. I'm not currently set up properly for drums, though. I was a really good saxophone player, but my mouth, I can't play anymore. It's kind of too bad because sax is one of the only things I sort of had. I mean, I'm not like I didn't practice sax and work at it. I did, but as somebody who's played that and other instruments, I know the difference. I can say I had natural talent for the sax that I'll never have for the piano. No matter how hard I work at the piano, I haven't worked on the piano in a couple of years now, but even when I did, like the best I ever was at the piano, I was maybe 15, 16 years old because that's when I was still practicing and taking lessons, and my mother was making me do it. And it wasn't until I was about 20 that I realized how much I liked the piano. And then I spent my adult life mostly not having access to a piano and being frustrated at how I didn't put the work in when I should have. But the truth is, even at my best, it was nowhere to what I was when I was on the sax. I had natural talent for the sax. One thing was like I could improvise on the sax. I could never improvise on the piano. I just couldn't. But with the sax, my fingers, they knew what to do. I talked about jazz before. It's kind of funny is jazz and soccer have something in common for me in that, I don't watch too much soccer, football. I watch it every once in a while, but I usually don't watch it, and I'm usually not too interested. But growing up, I played soccer, and I loved it. I adored it. And it's kind of the same thing with jazz. Like, I can appreciate good jazz, but I don't find myself listening to it or seeking it out too often. But I love playing it. I loved being in jazz bands. I loved it. It was so much fun, so satisfying. It was easily the most satisfying music I played growing up. Besides the few times, I can count on probably one hand. Well, actually, a little more. The very few times I got to like perform with a rock band and sing. This is a pretty good song. Come on. Even the sharing the mic thing. Well, I didn't know Steve Zahn got to like sing lead on one of the songs, but he did. That's pretty cool. It's one of the things I love about Sloan. Is there's 4 members. There's always only been 4 members, and they don't write songs together really. They write songs independently of each other. And whoever writes their own song, they sing lead for it. And Andrew, who's the normal drummer, when they're going to perform one of his songs, he doesn't play drums on it. He sings and plays guitar, so they switch around their parts. The only one who doesn't change is Patrick, the lead guitarist. But usually the classic lineup is Patrick, lead guitar, Chris, bass, Jay, rhythm guitar, and Andrew on drums. But when they do an Andrew song, Andrew comes and plays guitar. Chris takes over on the drums. Jay takes over on bass. Patrick stays the same. Here's one of those cute black girl groups. So many great ones. And a lot of them lost to history. I was thinking about the Ronettes not too long ago because of, Ronnie Spector and her. I've never understood why Ronnie Spector kept the name Spector. That man was a fucking monster and was horrible to her. Abused her, threatened her, literally imprisoned her. And she always kept the name. Why? Why do that? I can feel Spector. Yeah, so here they're still meeting more artists. And this guy, I think this guy is a jazz drummer or something, right? Yeah, so he's getting to geek out, meeting some jazz musicians because, while guy's enjoying being in a rock band, his heart is really with jazz. Diane Dane. Like he notices that, not her. As usual, Jimmy doesn't really care about the fame. He's very serious. He wants to go to the studio and write and record some new songs. What are the Chanterelles? Wow, that's long. It is true. One of the reasons why Tom Hanks at first wasn't so sure about casting Tom Everett Scott was like, he looks kind of like I did when I was young. Won't that look kind of ridiculous in the movie? But they're like, he's right for the part. So he eventually went along with it. But I do see the resemblance. I do see how he does look a little like a younger Tom Cruise, Tom Hanks. And they're right across from each other. Yeah, you can see some of the resemblance. Oh, there's Ben. Sorry, somebody had said love the soundtrack before, so I thought it was an old comment. Yes, the Own Eaters, as people would misname them. We're at about. They're on tour. We're about 54 minutes, coming up 54 minutes 30 seconds. So they're out on their first tour with the other whatever Tone Records, and Jimmy seems to be falling a little for this girl singer. Wow, she's sitting on his lap for this. I blipped out. I knew it was going to happen sooner or later. I'm really upset with my internet. I need to contact my internet provider and see if something can be done because I'm tired of this. I use a really good camera, and you can't tell because the stream never streams well. I don't mind it so much on a night like this. I'm by myself. It doesn't matter. But when I stream with Jay, I hate the contrast. His looks so clear. Mine looks like shit. It drives me nuts. Yeah, Tom Everett Scott. Yeah, like this is the only thing I can think of. I know he's in other stuff, but this is like the only thing I think of when I hear his name. Yeah, I mean he had quite a bit of charisma. Oh, now they got some go-go dancers with them. It did for some guys, but the whole thing was like certain guys, because of the contract, or certain bands and groups. I was talking about some of those Motown singers. They were locked into horrible contracts where the record company made all the money and they didn't make shit. Back in those days, record companies could really dominate you and lock you into horrible contracts. They told you when to record, when to tour, what to wear, and all this, and they made all the money. So a lot of these groups, they just disappeared into the ether, and they didn't even have any money to farm residuals or royalties or anything to fall back on. Playtone, the Playtone Galaxy of Stars. But on the other side of that, it's kind of funny that besides like not just one hit wonders, but the idea of like novelty songs, there quite a few people have made like a ton of money off like what you would think are just throwaway stupid songs that are novelty songs, but they get used a lot and licensed a lot and show up a lot, so they make tons of money. Of course, Gen X author Nick Hornby, who I'm a fan of. You know, he did stuff like About a Boy and High Fidelity and things like that. And anyway, I'm not sure what it's like. I don't care about the movie About a Boy because they changed it too much, and Hugh Grant's all wrong for the role. But the guy in that, he's like this 30-something slacker, and the whole reason, like, he doesn't even have a job, and he just goes around. It's because like his grandfather or something. No, it's not real. It's fiction, but it is true. It's based on truth. His grandfather had written some stupid Christmas novelty song from like the '60s, and like he was living off the residuals of that because he made so much goddamn money from it. That's a fictional example, but it is based on realism. Shades, yeah. So at this point now, they refer to Guy as Shades. Yeah, Monster Mash definitely falls under the novelty song thing. God bless the USA. I'll just sound like an uppity Canadian and say I hate that song, but I do. I hate that song. Oh man, I like Wisconsin. Hello, Wisconsin. They're getting the cool rock star exit. Getting escorted out by the cops with all the girls touching the car. It'd be a hell of a thing to live through, even if it was just for one summer. You know, I saw when I was only 7, so it wasn't my idea. Not that I didn't mind, not that I didn't like them, but I saw New Kids on the Block at the height of their fame. The 1990s, summer of 1990, they did the Step by Step tour when they did massive stadiums. I saw them in Ottawa. And I remember like around that time they had like a tour video about it and stuff, and it just, you know, they were so young, right? And it showed them like goofing off and running around the hotel and girls chasing them. Like, I mean, I don't know what most of the guys in New Kids on the Block do now. Of course, we all know Donnie Wahlberg and his family, but I mean, most of them, I don't know what the hell they went on to do. But you know, for a few brief years there, they were insanely famous and could do whatever they want and experience things that the average person will never experience. So, it must be a hell of a thing. And this movie's, you know, trying to show a piece of that, like I said, somewhat inspired in the broader story of just, you know, the many forgotten one-hit wonders of the 60s of groups that faded and couldn't last, and then also the specific story of Jimmy Nicol and his experience filling in for Ringo, the Beatles, for 8. It was 8 shows, but it was their world tour. It was their first world tour, so it was just madness. And he was one of them, even though he wasn't in the band. He was one of them for those 8 shows, those couple weeks or however long it was. And that was Tom Hanks' sort of main inspiration for the script for this movie. Now they're on a real life aeroplane. Richie Valens is there. Oh no, that's just Jimmy. Because I mean, we're at the standard part of the movie where, you know, the conflict starts to settle in, but at least it's not as cliched as a lot of these things would come. It's funny too because a lot of the cliches are just completely real life. Like when you talk about like conflict in the band and egos and getting in fights and girlfriends interfering like that. Well, Almost Famous is one of my favorite movies of all time. I actually just got that on 4K recently, and I don't own many 4Ks. But when I saw it, I was like, get it. And if you go back far enough, Jay and I did do an episode of it on our show, Movie Discussion Pocket Dimension, because it's one of my favorite movies. I adore that movie. That's one of those movies where I so strongly relate to the main character. I was so much like that kid that, I can't remember anybody's name anymore, but you know what I mean. The main kid in that. Like, I related so strongly to him. I was into journalism. I did eventually become a real reporter. But even when I was like 15, 16, I was like that. Like I did, you know, my world was like music. I was not very social. But I was into writing. Yeah. Yeah, I like Cameron Crowe a lot too. Actually, if you go back even further, we did one of the very first movies that Jay and I covered. I think it was even before we had the channel. The first like 6 or 7 episodes of Movie Discussion Pocket Dimension are actually on Jay's channel because we hadn't made a separate channel yet. And I think you go back there and Singles is on there. So that's Cameron Crowe, Singles, which is a pretty fun movie. The Shrimp Shack. I remember some of this. It was one of those beach movie. These were all the rage in '64. I love how they show how they actually have to cut the audio here, so that all the people are dancing to nothing while they record the dialogue. It's pretty funny. I've seen a few of these beach movies, with like Annette, what's her name, whatever, Kelly, from the Mickey Mouse Club, Doris Day. But it's so hard to separate them. They're all kind of the same thing. I've probably seen at least 3 or 4, but because they used to come on like Family Channel back in the day, and I would watch them because I watched anything back then when I was a kid. I like how the bassist, they're making him play sax. He's got a big tenor sax, and he actually thinks it's cool. I like that. Like he's not like, this is lame. He's like, I got a saxophone. Saxophone. You get to keep your wardrobe. At least Jimmy has some integrity. But yeah, as you are a fan of Cameron Crowe and the movie, I'm sure you know that you don't need me to tell you, but for the sake of anyone else watching it, yeah, like Almost Famous is basically based on a real life experience he had, and I think it was with I can't remember any band's names anymore. Oh, they're just one of the most famous bands of all time. Led Zeppelin was that, yeah, when he was a kid he did I haven't seen Elizabethtown in so many years, but that's one of those movies that like was kind of a failure in its time, but I always liked. Like it's trying a little too hard to be charming and quirky, but I always really liked it. And actually, here's something. So this doesn't matter at all, but since Ben's here, I'll say. So earlier in this movie, Chris Isaak has a cameo as somebody. And I was talking about how I used to watch his show on HBO back when it was TMN in Canada, and there was a show called The Chris Isaak Show, which was like a just sort of a fictionalized version of his life as himself and his band. And the band in the show was his real band, except they had a keyboard player who was not in real band. He was a character created for the show. And I can't remember the actor's name. He was a Canadian actor who I'd seen in a lot. He's in a lot of Canadian productions in the 90s. But if you remember Elizabethtown, there's a scene in that movie where the main characters are at a hotel at the same time as a wedding party and they run into like the groom. He's like hammered. That's the guy. He played the keyboard player in the Chris Isaak Show. And he's been in some other stuff too. But he's a pretty good actor. But I recognized him because he was in a lot of Canadian TV shows and movies. He's in the movie Little Criminals, which is depressing as fuck. And there's other things too. But I don't know his name, but I could find out, obviously. But yeah, so there's kind of a link. But yeah, I haven't seen Elizabethtown in a long time, but I remember really liking it. I think people were kind of taken aback by Orlando Bloom without an accent. They'd only seen Orlando Bloom in period pieces and fantasy. He was either a pirate or an elf, or he was in stuff like Kingdom of Heaven and Troy. So suddenly here he is, like with an American accent in a contemporary movie, and it's too weird for us. Yeah, I think that movie does try a little too hard, but I still do really like it. I need to watch it again. I was gonna say, no way that was Kristen. Yeah, Kirsten Dunst. Yeah, see, she's kind of my main problem with the movie, but it's not a big problem. Like when I talk about trying too hard to be quirky and heartwarming, it's really her character, but it doesn't bother me. Like she doesn't annoy me or anything like that. Kirsten Dunst, I'm mostly pretty indifferent to. She's fine. I really like the Virgin Suicides. I like the Virgin Suicides a lot. That's probably my favorite Kirsten Dunst movie, if you count that as a Kirsten Dunst movie, because she's not exactly the main character in that, but she's one of the main characters. Anyway, I love that movie. Another film that Jay and I covered. I saw the Criterion edition of that the other day, and it was like $52.99. I was like, a little too much, I think, so I didn't get it. But it is a movie I'd like to have. And I am a sucker for Criterion editions. They're just expensive as hell. So what's going on here? I've missed a little bit of this. Okay, Jimmy's trying to get the rest of them to understand that they gotta stop letting themselves get bossed around by the record company. Never trust a label. Oh, that was what the blonde told him. Not Tina, not that blonde, who I haven't seen in a while. It's funny how I misremember things when I was talking about Charlize Theron's character. It's like, I thought she showed up in the movie later, but she's there at the start. Now she's disappeared from the movie, so I've seen her have it completely backwards. She was at the movie at the beginning, and then she disappears later on. I like how So apparently, I didn't know this, but this guy here, the bellhop guy or whatever, like, I was talking about how like people from my generation seem to really like this movie and quote it and stuff. He's not somebody I remember. Oh, there's the blonde. Okay, she's back. By the blonde this time, I do mean Tina. Guys. Oh no, that's not Tina. That's Okay, I'm losing track of these blondes. I can't tell them apart. But anyway, this guy. Yeah, okay, that's a different blonde. Apparently, a lot of people remember him and quote him, and yet I don't remember him at all. His character is it will come to me. Lamar. He's Lamar. He's like the concierge guy. Apparently, a lot of people really like Lamar, and he made a big impression, but I don't even remember him. Is that what happens here? Does Faye decide she starts to fall in love with Guy instead? Yeah, Faye's gonna break up with Jimmy. I know that's coming. Wow, I must have. Yeah, I jumped past the part where they had a TV performance and there was a caption that said, "Careful, guys, he's engaged," and that made him really mad. He insisted that they weren't engaged, and she's gonna break up with him over it. I can already use 200 push-ups. I wouldn't say that. They'd make you do it. Yeah, see, why don't you give us 100 right now? You fucking tool. Man, I can't do 100. I can do 30. And I mean just barely 30. I mean, like from 25 to 30, I'm dying. Back when I was doing Muay Thai, I could do more. Yeah, I don't really remember Lamar at all. Like, I remember he's in the movie. I don't remember him doing or saying anything. But apparently, from that oral history article I had read not too long ago about the movie, like he was talking about, and he said people would recognize him from the movie and quote him and stuff. He wants to go see some real jazz. So that's where Guy's heart really still is. Going to the blue spot. Sounds good. Man, even cabs back then had the big fins. That's awesome. He looks so lame when he's Gru and he's going. Like, is that I always wonder about things like that. Like, is that the character, or is that honestly the way Tom Everett Scott like rocks out when he's interested in something? You know, speaking earlier in the movie, I was talking about how both Ethan Embry and Liv Tyler knew each other because they had both been in one of my favorite movies from the 90s, Empire Records, which I did do a pretty lame solo commentary on one time a couple years ago or something like that. But anyway, one thing I always wondered about that is at the end of Empire Records when they get what's her name to perform with the band. Charlize Theron, not Charlize, I'm getting all mixed up here. No, Liv Tyler's friend, Renee Zellweger. When Renee Zellweger performs with the band, she does this thing where she's like, she has her hands at her sides and she's doing this a lot and like leaning like this into the mic. And I always wondered, like, is that the character or is that just like what Renee Zellweger does when she like sings? But I don't know how to find that out. It just seemed like such an odd thing. I had to think, no, that's got to be like a character thing, right? Like Renee Zellweger doesn't really do that, does she? Because it was so weird. It was like, I think it was supposed to show like her nervous energy because the whole thing was, oh man, she wanted to be a singer, but she was so nervous and worried and blah blah blah. I think it was to convey nervous energy, and it's not a criticism, but I always wondered like, is that what it is, or is that just like what Renee Zellweger does? Because I mean, yeah, I know she sings in Chicago, but it's not like a rock band setting. That's completely different. It's a musical. That's the only movie I've ever found Renee Zellweger attractive in Empire Records. That's got Robin Tunney or Tunney or however you say it. She looked pretty hot with her head shaved, I have to say. This white kid has heard of us? Oh shit. So what happens here? Is he gonna get all disillusioned too because he's playing like radio rock instead of cool, awesome jazz? Yeah, I know he eventually gets to. Yeah, that's what it is. He gets to like jam with the guy and maybe even play in one of his records. Yeah, Jerry Maguire is one of the most famous movies that I've never seen. Like that's a movie that everybody knows and everybody quotes and mentions, and I've never seen it, and I just don't have any interest in never seeing it. I know, show me the money and all that. I know I've seen like a scene here and there, but I've never actually watched Jerry Maguire, and I have no desire to ever watch Jerry Maguire. So there's a list of some really big popular movies that like it. Not necessarily great movies, but just ones that everybody's seen. That's like one of them. Like everybody's seen that movie, but I've never actually seen it. I mostly am against it because it has that awful line, like "you complete me" or whatever. I mean, it's not the worst tag to like a romance ever. Probably the worst comes from Love Story. Love means never having to say your story. Like, what horse shit is that? But it's up there. Watch your money and you'll land on your feet. What money? The record company's making all the money. Yeah. Dill Paxton. Marguerite. She looks familiar. Do I know her from something? Oh, that's Rita Wilson. Okay, yeah. So that's Tom Hanks' wife, and she had just had a baby, and they were like, now let's do her up like a cocktail waitress. Rita Wilson. You're late for the gig or whatever the fuck it is. So that is Crow, is it? They did Jerry Maguire. So I was saying, I'm a big Cameron Crowe fan, but if that's him, I have no desire. Yeah. They gave me something. What, the herps? The HIV? Even in 1964, Playboy Bunny means something. They're already kind of messed up, but this is where the Ethan Embry doesn't show up, I think. And they had to like replace him on the fly. I don't know. Jimmy's sick. Oh, sure, you're being an angel now, but when it's time to go to bed, you're going to fly around. She's been asleep this whole time. Just not like her. He's in Disneyland. Oh, he went out with the army guys. Okay. Guy's hungover, Jimmy's vomiting because of nerves, and Lenny is preoccupied with his new girlfriend. Okay, so they didn't have the careful girls he's engaged thing yet. Okay, I'm skipping ahead. I thought I missed it. So this is the, okay. This is the TV performance. Boom! Here's a new bassist for you. But yeah, so they're gonna have the careful fellas, careful girls he's engaged line thing here, and the breakup's gonna happen. Okay. I like how I have this. I have the subs up here. Like, does this guy do it? And he's gonna. And the subtitle says plays killer bass licks. Well, if you can play killer bass licks, you're in. Bass, the unheralded rock and roll instrument, never gets the respect it deserves. Oh, look at those colors. At least back in those days, shit actually was live, which is pretty cool. Like, there's no tape delay, there's no bullshit. It's live. Like, that barely exists anymore. I mean, what's live now? I mean, like, sports are live, but anytime you have like these like concerts and things like this, like they say they're live, but they're not. Standard obligatory shot of the families and people gathering around their TVs, freaking out. It's not a very flattering shot. Why would they use that? Joy Chesterfield. I swear, like certain names just die out. Well, here's hoping, Ben. You guys are way behind. It's been legal here for what? I don't know, more than a decade. There's a place not too far from. I'm not where I live. It's, I saw that as it happened, Ben, and it's pretty funny because it's not like I even care, but it was just one night, and I was on. I had it on. I had the sound on pretty low because I was on the phone with my friend, and he had it on too, and we were just talking. We were, and then it started happening. I was like, "Whoa, what's happening?" And he's like, "What? What do you mean?" Because he had his on mute. I was like, "Oh shit!" And I love how she blamed her band too. She's like, "My band started playing the wrong song." I'm like, no, your fucking backing track started, and you didn't know what to do, and you bounced around, and they went. So yeah, I think I'm too young to have seen Sinead O'Connor rip the Pope in half, but I did get to see that classic live moment. Yeah, I know. No, I mean recreational's been legal here for fucking forever. I mean, there's still rules for it. Like you can't like stand on a street corner and smoke, although people still do. You know, but it's the same thing like beer. Technically, you can't stand on a street corner and drink a beer either. But no, I mean it's been legal. I don't mean medical. I mean it's been completely illegal here for more than 10 years, and we don't do it city by city or anything like this, or state by state. It's Canada passed it, and that was the whole country. I'm not going to get on this, but I'll always say I'm always annoyed by how in the U.S. laws are different state by state. In some places, they're very different. I think that's dumb and inconsistent. I think that the U.S. I know 50 states is a lot, but I think they should have the same laws. It's the same country. They should have the same laws. All right, come on, television debut. Let's do it. Yeah, there they mentioned the Beatles there. Teen sensations. Ethan Embry was a teen, but he's not even there because I don't think any of the others were teens at the time. But they might have, maybe 19. I don't know. I'll have to look up their ages. But Ethan Embry was young. He was only 16 when they started shooting. I don't know why I always like these, but I do like it whenever you have movies or shows that have like a live performance and they go to like the control room and they're like have the people camera 3 get in there, do a close up. I always enjoy that. I don't really know why. Maybe that's something I should have gone into. Been one of those people. Show the bass player and his killer licks. Yes, I remember this really well. Like them sort of narrating how they're going to do slow move in, nice and easy. That's a pretty shot. Get the drummer. Yeah, as you can see there, Tom Everett Scott knows the part. He is playing. Like it's not the track we're hearing, but I mean he's synced up to it perfectly. He could play it. They were all capable of playing it. Although what's his name? That's not his vocal. That's it's Mike Viola again. Not again. It's always been Mike Viola. Bridge. Take it to the bridge. It's I don't ask a lot, but my subs are showing it as I don't ask around. That's all right. This is probably the part of the movie I've seen the most. Which is kind of funny because one of the members is missing. Wolfman, they call Shades. Here comes the Careful Girls. He's engaged. He must see that on a monitor somewhere because he reacts to it right away. So he must actually be able to see a screen or something that shows it. See, if I was going to sing it now, I'm not warmed up. I'd sing it an octave low. But I can hit those notes, but you don't want to hear that right now, trust me. Like, yeah, not doing it. Plus, when you're hitting certain notes like that, you can't do it softly. Like I was going to do it, I have to go for it. I'd have to belt it out. It's 4:30 a.m. here. It's probably not a good idea to start singing at the top of my lungs. You waking up? Pop the cork. So we're at an hour and 25 minutes and 40 seconds. So we're coming into the final act here. They're about to break up. Yeah, it's freaking out about the engaged thing. I don't know why he's blaming her, you dumbass. You know that you've talked about how the record company execs are using you like puppets and doing whatever they want with you. And now you think it was her idea to have the Careful Girls, she's engaged thing up there? Like it was his idea? No. Tom Hanks' character is Lenny. Took me a while to remember that. $200 in 1964 money? Oh my God. What are you doing, guy? Guy's actually not disillusioned. He's enjoying himself. Because I thought, oh, he's gonna feel bad because he wants to play like legit jazz, but no, he's enjoying himself. Guess he realizes he's young and has lots of opportunities. Well, there's the breakup. Not only did she break up with Jimmy, but she says, from now on, stay away from me. That's a little harsh. Oh, such a public breakup. Thousands and thousands of kisses wasted. Oh, come on. Hey. I feel like she does this in every movie I've seen her in except like Lord of the Rings. But his weird like turtleneck thing, he looks like the kind of shirt you wear when you're fencing. Oh, come on. You were a little late getting your vocal jab out there. Oh, Lenny's disappointed in you, Jimmy. I just get a kick out of everything Steve Zahn does in the movie. Like in most movies, he's really good at those little mannerisms, those just little touches. And I'll never shut up about this. I think it's a shame that he and Jack Black never did any other movies together. I thought they had amazing comedic chemistry in that movie, Saving Silverman. I thought they were fucking great together. They could have been like Farley and Spade, man. But I don't know. I don't know if they are proud of that movie or if they enjoy it or if they got along or anything, you know. But I still think it's a cool movie. I haven't seen it in a long time, but I always enjoyed it, and I thought they were just really good together. But anyway, it's like one of the only movies I can think of that has Jason Biggs in it that I actually like. You didn't read the contract. You do what I say. Yeah, he wants them just to do it. Oh, you're going to do this in Spanish too, and that's based on real life too. Like one of the things that the record labels made the Beatles do was they made them record several of their songs in German, including "I Want to Hold Your Hand" and a couple others. This isn't the one, but I've got them somewhere. And I mean, they're fine, but the Beatles were annoyed by it, not because they don't like German, because they just thought, like our music's pretty universal. It doesn't really matter what language. People in other countries like it. And they were, of course, right. But anyway, fuck your contract. I quit. Of course, he doesn't say fuck your contract, but let's spice that up a little. Quite the whirlwind for Jimmy. She dumped you, and now you quit the band. And their bassist still hasn't come back. So yeah, you didn't just go to Vegas to gamble, did you? You idiot. You gotta get married. Yeah. So now Guy's the only one left. Oh, so tacky. Wolfman. It's over. The Wonders are in breach of contract, but I mean, how does that work exactly? It wasn't Guy's idea. Like, are you gonna punish Guy for something Jimmy did? I mean, do you sign as a band? I mean, bands are entities, but they're still made up of individuals. There, and he says one hit wonders. It's a very common tale. And it works literally with you guys because your name is Wonders. Funny how that works. They already know, like, the band's over. Because you're out of the hotel by this afternoon. Like, it's all so fast, the rug is just pulled right out from under them. You got to get out of the studio. You got to get out of the hotel. We're not paying for anything. You're done. Well, Faye's no Yoko. That doesn't even exist yet. Cherchez la femme. You are the smart one, guy. I was the only one that realized how good he had it, I guess. Like I said, he never got disillusioned or anything because he realized this was a lot better than working in his father's stupid store. The others didn't seem to really get that. Yeah, this is where he gets to do a little jazz drumming with Dell, and Dell eventually asks him to record with him, which is pretty cool. But we got a scene with Faye here. Those elvish eyes. I'm just going to bring the volume up a bit. Guy sitting at the piano. Can I play piano? No, I can't. I'm a drummer. What do you call a guy that hangs out with a bunch of musicians? A drummer. It's a cheap shot, of course. Drummers are fantastic musicians. I remember watching one of those like reaction videos on like Drumeo. Oh no, it was a reaction video to Drumeo. Like a Drumeo guy was listening to some song, you know, as they do. They have like some really good drummer listening to something for the first time. And then on some other drummer's channel, he was reacting to his reaction. At one point, the guy's like, key change here. The guy's like, he notices the fucking key changes too. It's like, oh my God. I mean, a key change usually does mean something for a drummer. Because usually it means you're probably moving away from like the main beat and you're changing into something else. Not always, but a little something about song structure, or the whole thing about songs is they differ. Yeah, they're just going to do some good old fashioned jazz drumming. Not too bad. I do think drummers are probably always a little bit different from the others. I don't know. It's kind of like, you know, people who, you know, I remember my friend saying something to me like, he wasn't like a hockey fan or anything like that. But then when we became friends, like you know, by just being around me, he had to hear a lot about hockey and stuff like that. And like he said, like I always thought like maybe the goalies might be a little bit different from the other players. And I said, that's absolutely true. That is a true thing in hockey. Usually if you have like a one guy that's like more thoughtful or introspective or quirky or just does not have most of the stereotypical things of an athlete, in hockey, he's usually the goalie. Not always, but usually. It seems kind of like the same way with drummers. Like you have various stereotypes and things that like a lot of professional musicians have and tropes they fall into. The drummers always seem to be a little bit outside of that. Play some Spartacus. Oh, so it's a callback to when he yelled, I am Spartacus. I love how casual this is. It's like, okay, you play that thing you played. I'll make up some stuff on the spot, and he's going to record. I mean, oh, what it must be like to be so talented. Jazz piano is far beyond my skills as a pianist. My meager skill, my complete lack of practice over the last few years. I've got a keyboard now. I've had one for years, and I never get around to playing it most of the time. Soon, though, soon, I swear. Just like I'll start running again, doing more exercise, and all the things I say I'm going to do and keep putting off. And use COVID as an excuse not to do, even though at certain points, COVID was a perfect excuse to do it. Oh, there's Lamar again. The little Fifi's about to vamoose as well. Okay, I guess that's kind of some good dialogue. Coming up to 1 hour and 36 minutes and about 50 seconds. So we're down to about the last 10 minutes of the movie here. Things are going to move quickly. So I probably forgot to mention, like, the hotel that place they were staying at is, of course, the shit, it was the place, the big ballroom there or whatever. That's where Bobby Kennedy was killed. Of course, in this universe, it's 1964, so it's what 4 years before that. But speaking of Bobby Kennedy and that place, I really am a fan of the movie Bobby, which was written and directed by Emilio Estevez of all people, who I think plays a jazz drummer in that movie. If you want a weird connection there, but anyway, I haven't seen that movie in a long time. Big ensemble cast, all sorts of people in it. But I always liked it. And I've always was really interested in Robert Kennedy. I always think of what a interesting world, how different the world could have been if he didn't die. He could have been president instead of Nixon. That would have really changed a lot of things, like Vietnam and the huge ripple effect it could have had throughout the world. Because I remember my mother saying, my mother would have been in her late teens when he died, and like she was really upset. And I mean, we're Canadian, right? But even Canadians, a lot of them really liked Robert Kennedy and believed in him and what he was doing. So his death was just so shocking and so tragic. Everything about the Kennedy family is tragic. Now you know that now. But anyway, that's one thing I remember of this movie. That this whole hotel place and ballroom that they're at the end for the last like third act or whatever is that same place. I can't remember the name of it, but it's in California. Let's get that out. Just for the sake of see here. One that's John. That was too early. The Ambassador Hotel in Los Angeles. Okay, that's what it is. The Ambassador Hotel. Couldn't remember the name, but yeah, same place. A lot of history there. And apparently, the big section of it was like not being used, and the actors, when they weren't on set, were running around exploring, like Liv Tyler and Ethan Embry. So, the band broke up, but you have a shot. Her hair looks much better that way. I didn't like it when it was up. I would not have the balls to have asked that question to somebody who was just recently dating my friend and they broke up, even if I did like her. Oh man, so now you're saying, I guess she was right about. Then again, maybe he was like, let's follow up on this wasted kisses thing. It's like, see, so he was no good at kissing you all that time. I'll show you how it's done. Yeah, it's a very family-friendly kiss. I mean, that's what you expect. You're not gonna have something sleazy. I will say, usually in movies, like when characters like make out furiously or passionately, like I'm just sort of annoyed because I'm like, let's just get on with the movie here. Like, what am I supposed to do from this? Like, I'm fine with romance, but yeah, see, because like this, I would, here they go. I start to lose patience. I'm not usually aroused by kisses, but I will say there's that movie, The Hole, and there's a kiss between, I don't remember the actor's name, but the actress is, oh shit, she disappeared completely. Thora Birch. And it's probably like the hottest kiss I've ever seen in a movie. I haven't seen that movie in a long time. And if you want something hot, you get to see Keira Knightley's breasts really briefly. So that's something. I haven't seen that movie in 1,000 years, but it's a pretty good movie. And that's like one of the only times I've ever actually enjoyed an on-screen kiss. I was like, wow, that's hot. But here I'm just like, okay, yeah, they kiss, romance, blah, blah, blah. See, they're kissing more now. Great, wonderful. It's like the band broke up, but I get to play jazz with my jazz idol, and now I get to have rebound sex with my friend's girlfriend, ex-girlfriend. Oh, that's how it ends. Lamar like looks at breaks the fourth wall and looks at us. Oh, we get the so here, yeah. So this part here with the epilogue with the photos, like Tom Hanks said, like when I saw um, American Graffiti, they had that, and I thought it was awesome, so I ripped it off. Yeah. So Jimmy went on to have his own. So Jimmy was not just a one-hit wonder. They were trying to show he was a real talent, and they say, he went on and had a new band that was successful. TV players. He survived Vietnam. Hooray! That was the other thing. Like, who get all enthusiastic about joining the army in 1964? You're not going to be enthusiastic in another year or two. And Lenny's, and they have to get that dig in too. The last thing for Steve Zahn's character, he is currently single. You mean that didn't work out? Yeah, Jonathan Shaich. I don't know how you say that damn name. I don't remember Chad. Giovanni Ribisi was Chad. I don't remember that. I must have blabbed through it. But anyway, there's no need. I usually like to do the whole credits. Yeah. Oh, Jonathan Demme even had a brief cameo. Oh, look, Mickey Mouse and Goofy had cameos as themselves. Okay, sure. Yes, this movie didn't like World on Fire. Virgil Gus Grissom was Bryan Cranston. Missed that. He was supposed to be like an astronaut or something. But the movie didn't do too well. The First Wives Club clobbered it at the box office, and I need to look and see what else. Like, Tom Hanks didn't go on to direct a bunch of stuff, but I mean, I think this movie proves he could be a pretty good director. I mean, he's been an actor for so long, and now he's like in his 40s, and for the first time, he directs a movie. And I think he does a pretty good. Plus, he wrote the script, and it's a pretty good script. But, yeah. Which movies did he actually direct? I'll have to find that out later. I'm not going to dig for it now. But anyway, I like this movie. It was nice to see it start to finish because I've seen it many times on TV, but usually not from the very beginning or maybe not the whole thing. So it's been a long time since I saw it all the way through. It is good to watch on Disney Plus because there isn't anything for them to censor. I was worried about that. I was talking about that earlier on, how they've censored little things in some of their movies. That movie, because Tom Hanks wanted it to be a sort of optimistic movie without anything really too bad. And, it's not going to have like cursing or anything bad, or I don't mean bad, So you don't have to worry about watching this on Disney Plus. There's no censorship there, which is good. Because that's why I won't watch Adventures in Babysitting on Disney Plus. As much as I like to see the movie again, I'm not going to watch Disney Plus cut out one of the most earned F-bomb drops in all of cinema. Like I was talking earlier. Like, yeah, I mean, movies are full of cursing, whatever, but there are movies where there might just be very sparse or rare, or even one-time cursing. And sometimes it's really important to the plot. And I feel like that's one of the most earned F-bomb drops in cinema, is the "don't fuck with the babysitter" line. Because, I mean, the rest of the movie doesn't have any of that. But when it's there, it lands and it fits. But obviously you can't have that on Disney Plus. Just like you can't have Daryl Hannah's butt in Splash. And I'm sure there's some other things they've censored that I'm not aware of. But yeah, I couldn't remember this movie too well in some ways. I was like, is there like cursing or anything that they're going to censor? But I don't think there is. It's a pretty wholesome movie. What's the weather out there? No more snow. It's good. We got enough snow. Want to say hi, Cammy? You're asleep. Wakey. No. Yeah, that's what I just said. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, she doesn't meow. She doesn't meow. Wednesday always said meow. She kind of chirps. I can't mimic what she does. Yeah, it's a cool movie, but I want to watch it too, but I don't want to watch it on Disney Plus because I know it's just one thing that I know. Can't you watch the whole movie? Because I mean, I know I watched it on TV and they censored it on TV. I'm just really annoyed with Disney Plus. There you go. It says additional vocals by Mike Viola, but it's not additional vocals. He's the main vocal. He's the guy singing that song. That thing you do. Anyway, he's had a moderately successful career. As I said, I know him for his work with Mandy Moore. He's written and co-written a lot of songs with Mandy Moore, produced a couple of her albums, and other artists too. It was Fireball XL5. I said it was either Thunderbirds or Fireball XL5. So there you go. And of course, Disney, blah, blah, blah. Filmed in Panavision. So yeah, so this was a little impromptu. I had other things lined up in case Jay or somebody could join me, but nobody did. So this was what I was going to do solo. So thanks to everybody that tuned in, Jamie, particularly Ben for being providing some conversation there for the rest of it. Oh, one last shot. It's nice. It does make you feel like they were a real band. It's pretty cool. So that's that. So thank you very much, everybody watching this in the future, as I always say. This is live, but later you can watch it in the future, and I hope you will. So thanks a lot, guys, and thanks, Ben, and everybody else, Jamie. And have a good night. I'll see you very soon, either on this channel or maybe somewhere else, and definitely on the Movie Discussion Pocket Dimension. What's going on there? We just embarked on our first series in a while. We're doing the enigmatic filmmaker Werner Herzog. So we already started that. We did Nosferatu, and hopefully sometime this week we'll knock out another one. Do 3 or 4 of those. Oh yeah. YouTube, and take it easy. I'll see you and others later. Have a good night, everybody. Peace.